Welcome to the Leading at the Next Level podcast with Dove Development and Consulting, the show built to provide ongoing support for your leadership journey. Now, I've got something really neat I get to do today. Cindy's been with me on this podcast a couple different times, specifically as we talked about the Executive Summit and the three lessons that we'll be sharing and then how we do the breakouts and so on. But what I've never done is had her on as a guest to where I could really interview her. We've each done interviews. I've done a lot of them. She pinch hit for me a while back while I had some kind of craziness going on and couldn't talk. And she just saved the day through some of those leading into our 2025 Leadership Legacy event. But what I'm going to do now is really set the tone and welcome her and let her talk about her background specific to how it matters with applying the values advantage. So if you've interacted with me and Cindy, you know that she compliments me. Matter of fact, she picks me up where I drop the ball a lot of different ways. And I say all the time that I would get a hell of a lot of work done if it were just up to me. But the reality of all of it is there's a chance that people actually like it when Cindy's involved with it because she softens all my rough edges and she just adds so much value. So with that said, I've talked a little bit about how much she compliments me. What I want her to do is kind of share a brief overview of her professional background and her experience across industries, but how it's really led to where we're at now.
Yeah, thank you for this opportunity, Wes. I enjoy being here and speaking to our guests, but mostly it's something that you drive. So this is a good opportunity for me as well. So experience across industries. I started working when I was 14 in high school. So I was in high school half a day, worked half a day, like we used to do. I'm not sure how many kids get the opportunity to do that now, but that was a great opportunity for me to discover that I had a really good work ethic and the importance of work ethic. So after a few years of that, I was wrapping up high school and I had the opportunity to work in manufacturing. So for about 10 years, I was in the manufacturing field. I learned a tremendous amount in manufacturing. It was just incredible to learn to apply work ethic, but to learn the importance of working as a team, learn what I was good at, and just all the intricacies of, I was in woodworking most of the time in a cabinet company, and learning the ins and outs of that and the importance of profitability and meeting your numbers and measurables. And it was a lot to do with the foundation that I took forward to the next 20 years in the medical field. And after 20 years there, gosh, I'll get into later if I have the opportunity, some of the leaders I was able to work for there and things that I learned. But I had the opportunity then to work in sales and marketing. Absolutely love that, even more than the other things that I had done. And then we started our business Dove Development and Consulting. I will get into a little more about that as well. But briefly right now, in 2001, through all of this, I discovered personal growth and leadership development. I had just been a few years into the medical field at that point, and the more I developed and could pass it on to others and watch them develop when they applied it, the more I realized the importance of leadership and got really hungry and dove into anything I could get my hands on to learn and grow personally and as a leader. And I learned what it was to lead for the right reasons as I saw that, and unfortunately saw some individuals in leadership positions that weren't necessarily leading for the right reasons as well, and just wanted to bridge that gap and help me and anyone I could pour into to be better leaders.
Yeah, that's so powerful. And I'm really excited that you were willing to agree to this, because so often people see me making a lot of noise and stirring the pot and doing all these different things and having a couple books and so on and so forth. And almost I'm going to back up and say sometimes the shallow ones will downplay the value you add or think you're just kind of the support player. And that's complete bullshit, because you do way more than people recognize. And you're, maybe close to halfway done with the manuscript of a book of your own. And there's so many different aspects. And I really appreciate you doing this, because it's just necessary for folks to understand just how critical the role is that you play in our business together. It's not me or you, it's truly a joint partnership, and I wouldn't want to do it without you. So anyway, with that said, building off the theme of my recent book that we built the 2025 Leadership Legacy Experience around, Leading with Clear Purpose, What was your clear purpose? You touched on it a little bit, and I go into it in the next to the last chapter of that book. But what was your clear purpose for accepting that leadership responsibility early on? And I don't stress that with the title because you touched on some folks that led for the wrong reasons. You and I both had a common thread in that we had to really embrace leadership in a way that we could get results through people that didn't report to us, but we still had to get those results. So talk about what that purpose was for you.
I will do that. I'm going to touch real quickly on what you just mentioned about you and I working together, and I'm not, out in front as much, or maybe it doesn't seem that way. Most businesses, I just really can't think of one that doesn't, has someone that's really out in front and, taking charge in a way that people see, and someone that's getting a lot of the details done in the background and maybe isn't as visible, but sometimes they are. And so that reminds me of me and you. It's really no different than any other business. With all of our teaching and training and most of our speaking, we're there together. But most businesses, just like marriage, like you and I, need someone that is doing both. Someone doing the details, someone doing the big picture things. So I think because they see us out together often, maybe that's where that comes from. But yeah, no different than any other business. So over to leading with a clear purpose, and what my clear purpose was for accepting a role as a leadership, that leadership responsibility. I really love that question. And it just immediately, when I was first asked this question years ago, I just knew what it was, and it's bridging gaps for people and organizations. That's something I've looked to do my whole life. Even when I started working at 14 in a school cafeteria, because I was in a private school and we could do that, I didn't recognize it then, but I recognize it, now that's what I was doing then. I was looking for gaps that needed to be bridged, and how can we do better in this area, or what's missing here that we need to help our flow go better, our systems be better, the business grow better. So it's pretty exciting that I have the opportunity that I can build myself and then be able to help other people to bridge their gaps. I love doing that through the training we do, the content I write. A lot of people don't know I write a leadership lesson that's about 45 minutes to an hour long, nearly every month. I do some other content writing. You mentioned that I'm writing a book. That book is on self-leadership, and it's things like self-talk. How are we talking to ourselves? And how responsible are we being? Consistency, just some different aspects that if we are not building ourselves and leading ourselves well every day, we're going to miss out on helping the people that we could help and on being the best version of ourselves that we could be.
Indeed. There's so many directions I could go with that. And I kind of chuckled as you shared that story about one out in front. And that's because I don't know how else to be. And I'm just thankful that you tolerate all the nonsense and the messes that I create, and you help clean it up. As I look through some of these questions as we're talking, it's kind of funny because if I'm being honest, I'd forgotten some of the ones I wrote because they're not usually for me and you. They're really focused on other folks. But I'm glad that you're taking the time and you're willing to do this with us, because there's a lot of this that you and I, unless somebody specifically asks, we just don't talk about it because we're more focused on the people we serve than what it is about us. So with that said, talk about what your background is, the purpose being that foundation. And as we've dug through that, share a little bit about what you do professionally, what you look at today, and who that you want to serve through what we do.
I want to serve leaders, and a lot of times I see the women leaders and men leaders kind of separated, but that doesn't matter to me. I want to serve leaders, anyone that is leading. And while the separate groups are okay, I love doing leadership together because we learn so much from one another. So for us, with the foundation that I have to bring to Dove Development and Consulting, what we do is improve profitability by building better leaders. That's a win for everyone. And really, what that looks like in terms of what we actually do day to day and who we serve, I guess, is more of where I'm going, is seeing that individuals in an organization, for the most part, do a good job. And eventually some are promoted from being an individual contributor that are doing a fantastic job there to being a manager or supervisor. Now they have this whole new set of responsibility of leading people. And we exist to develop individuals who are in those positions or want to be, or if they're leading a team of those managers and supervisors, to give them a set of skills that we've developed and share from our own experiences tailored to their organization through lessons that we've created. And what that has done is it's not only helped them create a lot of success, but they connect to it right away and they stay connected to it because they get to know us and they get to see and hear our stories. And we left a session yesterday, a training session, and we knew some of the individuals really well. Some were just meeting, and we were getting things like, when we left, that, gosh, I feel like I've known you forever. That's because we've shared a part of us. So we just love serving in that way.
Yeah, those are fun. Talk about a little bit the size of that organization versus some of the different size organizations we serve, because it's funny because so many people ask, who do you really want to help? And that answer has changed over the years, not for necessarily who we want to, but who we've realized that we really can.
You know, when we started out, we thought, and I thought, that we would serve organizations, maybe 50 individuals or less, go into those small, maybe family businesses that we had worked in some. I had experienced that with my own family having businesses, my entire life. And you had worked in family business and a little bit of the same idea. But serving those folks, we thought we would be there, but we've served Fortune 500 companies. It's just people are people, and everybody has people problems. Everybody has leaders that they want to help them become better. So we ended up, now we serve, and really from the beginning, we quickly realized that we'll serve anywhere from, 10 to 20 in an organization to 500, 1,000 and more, because that's the sizes that we've served.
Yeah, that's been a lot of fun in the process. You touched on one other thing before I tee up the next question. I'm going to circle back to. You touched on it's not this demographic or that demographic. It's not women leaders. It's not men leaders. It's not red leaders. It's not yellow leaders. It's not brown leaders. I remember a lady baited me at some stupid event we were at a couple of years ago saying, well, how do you handle this with this specific demographic? And I said, ma'am, I remember the Bible store, the little Bible school song that we sang when I was a kid that said red or yellow, black or white. They're all precious in her sight. And that's kind of where we've really taken that focus on leadership. I don't care if it's man, woman. We do a lot with DISC model human behavior, a strong D or a very supportive S. It's really about how can we develop the right people to be leaders. And I don't give a damn about the demographic or anything else that's around it. And if somebody else gets caught into it, then maybe you're caught up on the wrong things. Now, back to our story, after I probably stepped on some toes with that. What's one of the core, interesting that we asked this one next, what's one of the core values that you've really latched onto, and how do you model that daily so that everybody you interact with, whether that's with me, with our kids, with our clients, with our community, how they feel it in everything they experience from you?
So I would choose, not that any are more important than the other, but now that I say that out loud, maybe they are. One of our values for Dove Development and Consulting is people first. So that's what I would choose, because people first in every decision I make lines up with me to what a servant leader is. So with the servant leadership idea being doing things for individuals that they can't necessarily do for themselves. So not doing things for people that they can do for themselves, but the things they can't do for themselves, which are often the very things that help them get the results that they couldn't get otherwise. That's exciting. That's what leaders do. When leaders know what that is, which is part of leader development and learning about your people and personalities and communication and behavioral styles, being a servant leader and putting your people first. And it doesn't mean the organization isn't also first. It can be even. They can both be first, but letting your people know that people are first in terms of they are just as important to you as the organization, that they are just as important. And they also realize, we help our people realize the organization is just as important too. If the organization's not there, then we don't have a job. Then you're not first because you're not there. So tying that together, I really like having that as a value because it's who I am, but it's also something I have to be very intentional about, which is another Dove Development and Consulting value, intentionality. because I am wired to, I'm just task focused. For anyone who, knows about that, task focused, people focused, but I want people to be first. And so that is one of my core values. So I make sure it happens because that's where my heart is. I'm wired to get the job done to help people. Putting people first intentionally ties that together for me so I can work hard on the task, but stay focused on the people. And that really ensures just making a positive difference every day for the people we serve and for the time I put in, because it's hard. It's a lot of hard work, owning your own business, putting people first, making sure you're being intentional, but that's how I ensure that it makes a difference.
Yeah, without those values, it'd be easier to go get a stinking job, right? You know, build
Yeah.
on that a little bit and talk about how those organizational values really align with for us, it should be second nature, but we've had to be intentional about doing this. Talk about how it aligns with your own personal values and purpose, and what led you to even say, okay, Wes, I will do this. Because I remember in mid to
Yeah.
second, third quarter 2020 of 2016, you were making a ton of money. You're doing some pretty great things in your career. And I said, hey, Cindy, I really need you to make this move.
Yeah. Oh, I really like this. So my idea was, okay, I have a lot of supportiveness, and that's just who I am. I like to support you and other people. So my idea was I'll support Wes. I was working at the time, and I was going to move into our business, but my idea was to be more of an administrative role and sales, because I really enjoyed sales. I like the administrative piece. I was working on more public speaking because I knew that's something I was called to do and kind of overcome any fear of that. So I was putting myself in that situation, so I could develop that skill on almost a daily basis. But that's really where I started. But it didn't take me long for you and I to have conversations and, business things to come together, that I knew I was more called to be your partner than to just kind of help make things happen that you could go do. and I would just do all the other details that have to be done behind the scene that we each do a lot of now. But it lined up with my values of, intentionality and people first. It really matched that to step into more of a calling to develop leaders. It's something that I really have been doing for a long time, just not in my own business. And it gave me a desire to be a river, not a reservoir. And I knew I was called to build leaders by passing things on to others and not just keeping it to myself.
Very cool. This is a fun question. I usually ask it for the folks that we're doing the interviews with on this podcast, but I want to ask you, because I talk a lot about the different things we do, and you're quieter. You don't say as much, especially publicly. I want you to talk about something that you've had the opportunity to be involved in. We've done, but you've had the opportunity to be involved in, project, campaign, whatever that may be, and the specific impact that you've seen it have on the community or the industry that it served.
Wow, I'll touch on a couple here. I think we have time. So first, the Leadership Legacy event that we just wrapped up in June of this year, June of 2025. That was a huge undertaking for me to think about the right word, and I'm not sure that is. It was kind of scary for me, although I knew we could make it successful. You're the big picture guy, and I'm more of the, what are the risks? What do we need to be cautious about? So I knew it would be incredible, but coming out of that, seeing the people it impacted, bringing Mark Cole, CEO of all of John Maxwell's organizations, to Harrisonburg, Virginia, watching him have personal conversations with people who would never have the opportunity to meet him in person before, just really was incredibly fulfilling. Along with the day of growth that we could give people there as we grow that, it was, about twice as big as our other leadership events, as we switched our model somewhat and brought it to the James Madison University Atlantic Union Bank Center, and it is in a mid-Atlantic event. So that will only get bigger. And you and I grew in the process as well. You can't take on something like that and create success from it without growing yourself. Unless bad, things happen. And it was, nothing but really great things happen. We know there's things that can be even better next year. The other I'll touch on real quick is we have developed for a number of years, but are getting this model out into organizations more, is our Executive Leadership Elite Think Tank model. This is a quarterly leadership group for leadership teams that is just impacting organizations beyond what I expected. And maybe I should have expected, these amazing things that are happening, but my thinking was more into making it an impact, helping them grow, but the way they're growing exponentially and how I see they'll carry that forward, whether we're there or not, is really purposeful. It's just a powerful, like, forward movement that we see these teams having, where they're having conversations around lessons that we provide. It's tailored to them. We're giving them leadership tools. They're learning about leadership principles, or just being reminded of those. And they're learning about each other in a way that they're coming together and growing. And it's a catalyst for where the organization is going. And that is so energizing and exciting for me to see them growing to the next level of business.
Yeah, I remember in each of those, I chuckled a lot. I almost laughed out loud as you were saying that I was the big picture. And praise God, you were involved with the details of the Leadership Legacy event and so many other things, but specifically that, because I had a big picture and I knew the ideas, but my goodness, you helped me tie it all together. And we had a good time with it. And we're ready for year 2 coming up, as we're sharing this with Mark coming back and some other cool stuff. With the Executive Leadership Elite Think Tank group that you mentioned, with that being the model that we started, I love how you shared that, because I remember as we got it started, the purpose, the goal that we had in mind for it, and how much today, 6-7 years into it, and how we're, like you said, able to take that into organizations and do it with executive teams, not just public scenarios like we've done historically. How much we see those relationships build in the process so much deeper than I ever anticipated with the public settings that we've got, how much it cross-pollinates, how much those organizations are intentional about doing business together, how much iron sharpens iron, and how much it really builds. So that's been a lot of fun to see. Thank you for sharing that perspective, because it's wildly different than mine, but it goes right along with mine. So next to the last question, how have your core values really driven you to invest your time, your energy, and, gosh, from our pocket, our own money, into your own leadership growth?
Making sure that I'm staying in line with my calling and applying the values of intentionality, measuring what I'm doing to make sure that I'm being effective. I'm not just gaining a certification, or I'm not going through a lesson. Every time I need to make sure that I'm on track and I'm going in the direction of our mission and vision. We teach and train other organizations on mission and vision. You hear my puppies? We have 2 new rescue dogs, so hang with me. We teach other organizations about, we get them aligned on mission and vision. Well, we have to make sure that we're aligned with our mission and vision as well. So my core values help me do that. And this really goes back to the idea really resonated with me decades ago of being a river, not a reservoir. A reservoir holds water, it holds on to what it has for the most part, where a river offers its water everywhere it goes. And as a leader, I think all leaders should. I know I'm called to share leadership through share the leadership that I learned with other people, like with my people. And for our business, I'm called to share leadership through training and development opportunities that we create ourselves and tailor to organizations, like I mentioned. If this was just for me, I would still be in a sales and marketing role somewhere, or maybe being your behind the scenes person. I'm very reserved. If you look at my personality style, I'm double reserved. Makes me a pretty good listener, because I care about people and I listen good, but boy, it takes a lot of energy to go out and teach and train and develop, but it's fulfilling and I do enjoy it tremendously because I'm called to do it. But it takes applying those values to make sure that I take what's not the easy road, but the right road.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. Before I ask the last question, I'm going to do a quick segue and do a little bit of commercial for the rescue dog thing you mentioned. Teddy, the little, we don't know what kind of mix, terrier, poodle, pug,
Mhm.
all kinds of stuff. He's kind of like Benji and a
Yeah.
little bit, what's that thing? Hyena mixed in there. He's 5 weeks as of today. And Fancy's a standard poodle with this purple muffin top hair right now that's going to get trimmed out soon, I assure you. But Fancy was very, very reserved, where Teddy has been really wide open. And our friend Andy Van Hook shared, yeah, just like you and Cindy, and kind of. But gosh, it's been so fun to watch the two, just to hear Fancy running around the house and doing what she just did with barking means she's happy, and she was not. She was really reserved and would still is kind of afraid of me, but she's really warmed up to Cindy and lays beside her and so on. So it's pretty neat. If you've not had rescues that has nothing to do with leadership, or maybe it does, maybe it has a lot to do with where your heart's at. But the rescues, Cindy and I have had the opportunity for about 15 years to do rescue dogs, and it's pretty cool. So with all that said, let's go back to the final question that I've got for you. The final formal question is, what advice would you share with someone that's new in a leadership role or aspiring to be? One of the questions I typically ask it as young professionals, but I don't care what the age is. For somebody that's either aspiring to take on leadership or they're new in their leadership role?
Gosh, you are the leaders that our grandchildren will be counting on. Don't let that feel heavy. That is a exciting responsibility. Okay, you are the people that will lead the world, and whether you want to be in a leadership role or not, we're all leading ourselves well. Now, in terms of your own, professional role and your own development, I would say to make sure that you're not drifting. Life can get so just, task focused so many times. There are people to take care of, and there's so many things to do on the job, things to do after work, things we want to do to enjoy life, that we can get into this drift where we're kind of drifting along day to day without any real growth. So make sure that you're growing every day, whether it's a leadership or a personal development book or leadership book, a podcast. We have a Leading at the Next Level program that's very easy to access. As a matter of fact, Wes may mention that as he's wrapping up. And it doesn't have to be us. Something that pours into you and helps you develop, then look back every few months, take 10 minutes and identify where you've grown to make sure that you're becoming the person that you want to be.
Cindy, thanks for sharing each of those. The last question, I'll just leave it kind of open-ended. Is there anything that I've not asked you that you would like to make sure that gets included?
Oh, goodness. I guess I'll just mention my book real quick. It's probably going to be a year more before that's out. And I know Wes has a book coming out. I'd love to hear you share about that if you want to. If another time is better, that's fine. But it's about, like I mentioned, self-leadership. So start thinking about how you're leading yourself every day and what you would like to improve on. I think most individuals do a good job, but we can always become better. We can always lead ourselves better, and we can only lead others as well as we're leading ourselves. Everyone has a lid on their own leadership, and the lid on your leadership isn't even as effective as you can be for other people. The lid on your leadership, when you're leading others, you come up under the effectiveness of your own lid. So let's say if you're a 7 out of a 1 to 10 leadership scale, you can only lead as effectively as a 6. So lead yourself well and make sure you're growing every day.
Outstanding. Well, you alluded to it. I'll share that the Values Advantage, it's the new book I've got. It's scheduled for a release in February of 2026. That's going to be the theme of our upcoming executive summit. Wherever, if you're in the Shenandoah Valley, if you're in Virginia, I would say figure out how you can get one of the few remaining seats for that, because it's going to be a powerful day, and that's going to be the theme for that event. But it's really about the practical application part. The book's broken into 3 or 4 different segments. The practical application is what that day is going to be, from mid-level managers up to executives and owners and so on. But it's capped at 125 people, and there's going to be a lot of intentional interaction, much like our Executive Leadership Elite Think Tank and our Impact Leadership Academy models. Now, with that said, those links are in the show notes. Those are built into that and so on. We've got the Leadership Legacy event that's coming up as well. And you alluded to the Leading at the Next Level program. That's what I'll say first and foremost. Thanks for taking the time to listen to us. Thanks for letting us have the opportunity to share from our hearts, talk a little bit about the perspective of our journey, some of the things that matter most to us. If you're hearing this and you've got a need for continuing education credit, reach out to us. Send us an email at admin@dove-development.net, and we'll give you an all-access trial, 45-day trial to our complete Leading at the Next Level program. It was crazy when we started this. We did it on the heels of our first Emerging Leader Development course, and I said, gosh, Cindy, we should do something that really helps folks go deeper and farther in their path and goes into different topics and so on. And I had no idea what I was getting us into, but fast forward a bunch of years, now it's close to 170 lessons in the digital assets. And I've been over the last few days making some updates to that, making it a little bit more aesthetically pleasing and so on. And there's going to be some neat stuff coming in that too. But it's also every single lesson is approved for credit through the Society for Human Resource Management, the Human Resource Certification Institute, and we've worked with a couple other entities as well, but we needed to chat with you personally about that. So if you've got a need, reach out to us directly. We'd love to be able to serve you. Cindy, thank you for taking the time to do this. You had a ton of other things on the radar, but I said, gosh, will you give me some time and do this for the podcast where we can actually, so I can interview you as opposed to some of the great clients that we work with as well. Certainly appreciate your time. And everyone else, thanks for listening. Make it a great day, and God bless.